Hello and welcome to the My Ministry Mission podcast, where I'm taking you on a journey with me from unbeliever to disciple of Christ. Feel free to visit me online, myministrymission.com. You can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/myministrymission. My name is Jason, and this is my mission. All right, normally I've done these full podcasts, but the whole point of my ministry mission was to get out there and to share what I've learned as a new Christian, as a young Christian, if you will. And I was reading through part of the book of John. I was actually reading all the intro text to the different books, the different Gospels. And I stumbled upon John 1, verses 1 through 18. And I started kind of cross-referencing it with the commentaries and looking at some of the roots of the words and just following the breadcrumbs. And I felt so inspired by these 18 verses that I wanted to share. And I thought I'll just throw it up on the podcast as a separate episode. So that's what you're getting right now. You're not getting a full, well thought out episode with notes and all sorts of preparation. You're getting me just talking about something that's really exciting me right now. So I'm going to get started with John 1, verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That is marvelous. I mean, it's just literary genius right there. It's so beautiful and so wonderful. But what John is alluding to, John begins his gospel by going kind of back to the very beginning of time, even before Genesis, acknowledging that God existed long before creation began. So in the Greek, the term translated to word in this is logos, which is basically, it's a representation of a word or a concept or an idea. So in Greek philosophy, everything pre-existed in a thought before it took form. Now, where there's a thought, there has to be a thinker, right? Let's think in this case, God. So what John is trying to say here is that in the beginning, God had an idea that predicated his creation in Genesis. That's my interpretation. I didn't read that anywhere, but that's what it seems like to me. God thought of it and said, you know what, I'm going to do this. Let there be light. And there was. John is also using this language to show that Jesus, or the Word, was with God and Jesus is God. Okay, so moving on to verses 2 through 5. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Okay, if you go all the way back to Genesis 1, verse 1, the word for God is Elohim, which is the plural form of the word God. If you look at where the singular word El is used for God, it represents the Father. So here in creation, the plural form teaches us that the Father, the Son, and the Spirit existed from the beginning. And John is telling us without Jesus, nothing would have been made. John is also declaring that the light of the world shining in the darkness refers to Jesus Christ coming to the earth to walk among us. Okay, so John 1, 6 through 10. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all might believe. He himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. Okay, so now we're moving on to John the Baptist, not to be confused with John, the author of the book of John. We're told that John was not the light, but was coming before Christ to witness to the light. Again, we're reminded that he created the world and was coming to bring light into the world's darkness. So moving on to John 1:11. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Jesus created the world and then came into the world, but his own, the people of Israel, did not receive him. Jesus was the lost sheep of Israel, and instead of welcoming the Messiah, they despised and rejected him, and thus the prophecy of Isaiah was fulfilled. Moving on to verse 12. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. So some people did receive Christ, obviously, and he gave them and us the power to become sons and daughters of God. Think about that for just a moment. The Son of God became a man in order to make each of us children of God who would believe in his name. All right, verse 13. Children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision or husband's will, but born of God. We cannot become children of God through our genealogy. We cannot set our minds to it and become children of God. We cannot will ourselves to be children of God. Being born of God means that we are born a second time. First, we're born in blood by the will of the flesh, our physical birth, and then again through spiritual birth by accepting Jesus. John goes on in verse 14. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. So here we're taken back to Genesis 1:1. In the beginning was the Word. He was with God, and he was God. Think about that. All things were made by him, and then the Word, Logos, or Jesus, became flesh and transitioned from an infinite existence as a God and with God into a finite existence as a man of flesh. He was the one and only Son of God, the Father, and he brought us to grace. Okay, verse 15. We're getting close. John testified concerning him, cried out, saying, This is the one I spoke about when I said, He who comes after me has surpassed me because he was before me. John the Baptist was a cousin to Jesus by physical birth, but he was born before Jesus by about 6 months. However, John is not talking about birth order here. John is proclaiming the existence of Jesus long before his incarnation. He who comes after me has surpassed me because he was before me. He's saying Jesus was God before I even existed, and he came after me. I was born first, but Jesus came after me, but he's still before me. I think that's just an amazing sentence right there. Okay, moving on to verses 16 and 17. Out of his fullness we have all received grace in place of grace already given. For the law was given through Moses. Grace and truth come through Jesus Christ. So God created us with the intent of having a fellowship with us. But early on, we disobeyed God and let sin into the world, and sin separated us from God. However, God still wanted that relationship. He still wants that relationship with us. So he sent Moses and gave Moses the law, which allowed us to restore the fellowship with God. But the offerings of bulls and goats didn't get rid of sin. It just covered up sin. But now God has created a new covenant through the grace of Jesus Christ. All right, finishing this up, verse 18. No one has ever seen God but the one and only Son, who is himself God and is in a close relationship with the Father and has made him known. No man has seen God at any point, not in his full glory. Moses saw the afterglow of God, but we cannot see God and live, at least not in body. The exception is Jesus, who is God, who is in a close relationship with God and is of pure heart. Wow, okay, I know that was a lot. It was a little fragmented. I'm sorry for that. I didn't prepare for this very well. I just took some notes as I was reading through it. But I wanted to share that with you while it was fresh in my mind, while it was fresh in my heart. I think the book of John may very well be my new favorite for now. I'm not quite done reading. I'm reading different parts of the Bible. I'm also reading Deuteronomy at the same time, which is very dull. So I kind of try to read some of the New Testament to spice things up a little bit. So anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it brought you some more information, some new knowledge, maybe a little inspiration. I urge you to go read the book of John, at least the first 18 chapters. Grab some commentaries, grab sermon notes, start cross-referencing it, do your own homework, and wrap your mind around just how wonderful this introduction is to this gospel. So that's all I have for now. Thank you for listening. My name is Jason, and this is my mission. God bless you.